Bill Maher sits back in his chair, a smirk on his face, the studio lights reflecting off the polished desk in front of him.
For the most part, what we're talking about is a teenager who has felt that they have a gender dysmorphia. So what they feel like is that they feel deeply unhappy, depression, all really rampant.
Yes,
and they go to their parents.
They feel that, and then they blame it on the thing that has been put in their mind way too much, that it may be because of you're in the wrong body.
Jon Lovett, animated and passionate, leans forward, his hands gesturing as he speaks. The audience is silent, waiting for the next exchange in this.
Which is what they went to people who were excuse me, I'm not done.
Right, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. Honestly, that was rude.
That
was rude. That was rude. Bill, finish. You're explaining how being trans is like being recruited into Al-Qaeda.
Well, that's glib and
absolutely 100% glib. Stupid and glib.
It is.
Yes.
Because it's not true.
Right.
And you didn't even let me get through the
You're
thing.
right.
And now I got to go.
You're just going to leave? We're in the middle of a debate.
Tense but controlled debate. Jon Lovett starts by making his case, speaking about the importance of transgender rights, the need for inclusivity.
When you're a kid, when even a teenager, and you're that confused about everything and you have no idea and you're upset for many other reasons, the idea that they put it, let me just finish.
I'm not saying it.
I know. I can see you are ready. I can see you pulling back the bow.
And the responsibility of society to support marginalized communities. He argues that the transgender community faces disproportionate discrimination, violence, and mental health struggles. He cites statistics, I
got to my card that says trans. Let's talk about it. The position, look, other countries have national health services. The Democratic position is leave it up to parents, doctors. Just leave. It's not the government's decision. That's the Democratic position. What's wrong with that position?
Wait, say that again?
The Democratic position, right? Joe Biden.
Well, the Democratic position in this state has been that the school has the right to hide it from the parents. That is something that is not going to go well with the average voter. And again, I'm not even a parent, and I get it.
It's about the medical consensus on gender dysphoria and stresses that affirming care is life-saving. His voice carries urgency, conviction, a belief that he is on the right side of history. He brings up personal stories, testimonies from trans individuals who have found happiness and stability after transitioning. He discusses the role of media in shaping perceptions and argues that positive representation is crucial in dismantling harmful stereotypes. Bill Maher listens, his expression calm, arms crossed. When Lovett finishes, Maher takes a breath and responds with measured words. He says he supports equal rights for everyone but questions the rapid changes in social norms. He argues that while compassion is crucial, society should also be
and the fact that they put this in their head too much, that's my thing. Should you tell a kid, look, there's a default setting for humans, male and female, but there are variations. That's absolutely true. Some people are attracted to people of their own sex, and some people are actually in the quote-unquote wrong body, and that does happen. But the amount that they emphasize this, I compared it once on my show to entrapment.
Able to discuss difficult topics without fear of being silenced. He points out contradictions, highlighting areas where activism might have overstepped into territory that stifles debate. He references past social movements, drawing comparisons between the fight for civil rights, gay rights, and the current debates around transgender identity. He acknowledges progress but questions whether some aspects of the movement are being pushed too fast, without enough discussion of long-term consequences. He brings up concerns about medical interventions, particularly for minors, asking whether society is fully considering the implications of hormone therapies and surgeries at young ages. He brings in expert opinions from psychologists and doctors who have cautioned against quick medical transitions, highlighting cases where individuals later regretted irreversible procedures. Maher also points out the societal impact, questioning how new policies, such as allowing biological...
What is entrapment? Entrapment is when you suggest something to people that they weren't ordinarily going to do. I used the example of after 9/11, the FBI got caught basically entrapping some people, which is what they went to people who were excuse me, I'm not done.
All right, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. Honestly, that was rude.
That
was rude. That was rude. Bill, finish. You're explaining how being trans is like being recruited into Al-Qaeda.
Well, that's glib and
Absolutely, 100% glib.
Stupid
and glib.
It is.
Yes,
Because it's not true.
Right.
And you didn't even let me get through the
you're
thing.
right.
And now I got to go.
Biological males in women's sports affect fairness and competition. Jon Lovett counters, arguing that denying transgender people the ability to transition is cruel and inhumane. He brings up historical examples where similar arguments were used against gay rights. He says that when people hesitate to affirm trans identities, it contributes to suffering. He stresses that the medical community overwhelmingly supports gender-affirming care, and delaying or denying it can have catastrophic mental health effects. His voice rises slightly, passion fueling his words, but he keeps his composure. He argues that while some may regret their transition, the vast majority do not, and using rare cases to invalidate an entire movement is disingenuous. He provides data showing that trans people...
New England Journal of Medicine advocated for taking sex off of a birth certificate, I believe. It was like you're assigned sex at
Assigned
birth.
sex at birth.
Assigned.
Yeah.
You're assigned.
I think that's right.
I was assigned it by my dick, okay, when I was born. Yes, and again, to tell kids it doesn't always have to be and isn't always the default setting, but that's a different mentality than they put in the minds of kids. And that's why this debate goes on. And the fact that you think, or a lot of people on the left think that even if you just have this debate, it makes you a bigot, you just have to roll over. You asked about the Biden administration. That was their position. If you even question this, you're some sort of a bigot.
People who receive support and care are much less likely to experience suicidal thoughts compared to those who are denied care. Bill Maher raises his hand slightly, signaling a pause. He responds by questioning whether social pressure is influencing medical decisions too much. He acknowledges that trans adults should have the right to live as they choose, but expresses concern over children making irreversible choices, arguing that progress has always been met with resistance and that standing for trans rights is no different from past civil rights battles. He points out that trans people have existed throughout history, and it is only now that they are beginning to receive recognition and rights. He says that dismissing their fight as a trend is a failure to recognize
The science, the research, all right, makes clear that, yes, there are exceptions. Yes, there are people practicing it in ways that maybe go too far. But for the most part, study after study shows that gender-affirming care saves... I'm talking. It's my turn. I was so quiet for so long after I interrupted a few times.
But okay.
But once I stopped talking, boy, I was good at it.
long history of struggle. Bill Maher nods, acknowledging Lovett's point, but remains firm. He reiterates that his issue isn't with trans people, but with how the discourse is being handled. He says that while compassion should guide decisions, blind acceptance without discussion can be dangerous. He questions whether the media and institutions are suppressing dissenting views, making it harder to have an open conversation. He brings up examples from other countries, such as the UK and Sweden, where medical policies on transgender care for minors have been re-evaluated due to concerns over long-term effects. He asks whether the US is moving too quickly without examining all sides. Lovett, unwavering, says that open conversations shouldn't come.
Of course, that's awful, and I agree with all that, except the part about the studies. There was a very big story this year. It was in the front page of the New York Times. A woman, I forget her name, and she had done, like, it was a 10-year study, did not release it on purpose because she said it would weaponize the argument from the other side. So in other words, it came out not the way you wanted the study to come out.
Yeah.
Not what you said, that it's, all the studies show that. No, it is a mixed bag. That's true.
Questions. He wonders if the fear of being labeled transphobic is preventing honest conversations. Jon Lovett exhales sharply, shaking his head. He argues that this isn't about cancel culture, but about protecting people's lives. He insists that trans people aren't a debate topic, but real individuals who deserve respect and dignity. He challenges Maher's idea that too much is changing too fast, arguing that progress has always been met with resistance and that standing for trans rights is no different from past civil rights battles. He points out that trans people have existed throughout history, and it is only now that they are beginning to receive recognition and rights. He says that dismissing their fight as a trend is a failure to recognize a long history of struggle. Bill Maher nods, acknowledging Lovett's point, but remains firm. He reiterates that his issue isn't with trans people, but with how the discourse is being handled. He says that while compassion should guide decisions, blind acceptance without discussion can be dangerous. He questions whether the media and institutions are suppressing dissenting views.
Some parents are terrible. Somehow the fact that there are terrible parents in the world gets erased on these questions. Do I think that schools should, as a baseline, be keeping a secret from parents? Of fucking course not. No one thinks that.
Well,
no one thinks that.
Apparently that's not true. People do think that.
Making it harder to have an open conversation. He brings up examples from other countries, such as the UK and Sweden, where medical policies on transgender care for minors have been re-evaluated due to concerns over long-term effects. He asks whether the US is moving too quickly without examining all sides. Lovett, unwavering, says that open conversations shouldn't come at the expense of people's dignity and rights. He argues that debates shouldn't be about whether trans people should exist, but about how to support them effectively. He emphasizes that history will judge those who stood in the way of progress. He challenges Maher to consider what side of history he wants to be on and whether his skepticism truly serves to help people or simply fuels more division. Maher, still calm, ends by saying that he is not standing in the way of anyone but simply asking for balance. He insists that questioning societal changes is not the same as opposing them. He says the goal should be to find a middle ground where everyone can live freely without fear, but also without pressure to conform to a single ideological viewpoint. He reiterates that discussion is necessary, and shutting it down only leads to resentment and confusion.